My wife texted me, "Don't come to the family dinner, my parents don't want you there." So I quietly canceled every settlement I was paying for them, the loans, the bills, all of it. I didn't argue. I didn't warn anyone. The very next evening, she showed up at my apartment, unaware that I'd already uncovered something that would change all of our lives forever. Before I tell you how everything unraveled, take a second to let me know where you're listening from and follow along. Stories like this only travel when people stay till the end. I'm 31 years old, and until that night, I believed I was building a life with my wife, not financing someone else's. We'd been married just under 2 years, living separately because of work. I rented a modest apartment downtown near my job, while she stayed closer to her parents in a quieter suburb. It wasn't ideal, but it was temporary, or so I thought. Her parents had always been complicated. Polite to my face, distant behind it. Her father barely spoke to me unless money was involved. Her mother smiled the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. Still, I told myself it was normal. Different backgrounds. Different expectations. Marriage was about compromise. What I didn't realize was how much I was already compromising. It started small. A loan her father needed to bridge a short gap. A medical bill her mother didn't want to put on a credit card. Then came the bigger things, helping them settle an old property dispute, covering legal fees, paying off a lingering business debt that couldn't wait. Every time, my wife framed it the same way. "They're family now," she'd say. "We'll get it back once things stabilize. This is just temporary." I trusted her. I loved her. And I had the income to help, so I did. Quietly. Consistently. No contracts. No announcements. Just transfers and checks and reassurances that this was what a good husband did. Over 18 months, it added up to more than I ever admitted to myself. The text about the family dinner came on a Wednesday afternoon while I was at work. No call. No explanation. Just that line, my wife telling me not to show up because her parents didn't want me there. I read it 3 times, waiting for the follow-up that never came. I replied once, "Did something happen?" No response. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at the walls, replaying every conversation, every holiday where I'd felt like a guest instead of family. And for the first time, a thought surfaced that I couldn't push away. If I wasn't welcome at the table, why was my money? I didn't confront her. I didn't ask her parents for clarity. I did something else instead, something calm, deliberate, and completely silent. The next morning, I called my bank. I canceled the automatic transfers. I stopped the standing settlements. I froze the accounts I'd set up specifically to help her parents. No drama. No threats. Just numbers returning to zero. By noon, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Missed calls from my wife. Messages asking if something was wrong with the accounts. A vague text from her father about a banking error. I didn't answer any of them. That evening, just after sunset, there was a knock at my apartment door. I knew it was her before I even looked through the peephole. She stood there with her arms crossed, jaw tight, phone already in her hand like she was prepared to record or accuse. The moment I opened the door, she stepped inside without waiting for permission. "What did you do?" she demanded. I closed the door slowly behind her. "We'll get to that," I said. "But first, I want to understand something." She scoffed. "This is about the dinner text, isn't it? You're overreacting." "Am I?" I asked calmly. Because being told not to attend a family dinner feels pretty final. She waved it off. "My parents were uncomfortable. It wasn't personal." "Uncomfortable enough to take my money," I said. That stopped her. Her eyes flicked away for half a second, just long enough to confirm what my gut had already started to suspect. "You had no right to cut them off," she snapped. "They were counting on that money. Counting on it. Not grateful. Not appreciative. Counting on it." I nodded slowly. "That's interesting," I said. "Because what I found out today makes that word mean a lot more than you think." Her expression shifted, just slightly. "What are you talking about?" I didn't answer right away. I walked past her, picked up my laptop from the desk, and set it on the table between us, still closed. "I didn't just stop payments," I said. "I checked where they were going. What they were actually being used for." Her face drained of color. That was the moment I knew the dinner text wasn't about comfort, or boundaries, or family tension. It was about control. About keeping me just close enough to fund their lives, but far enough away not to question them. She opened her mouth to speak, then stopped. Outside, the hallway was quiet. Inside, the air felt heavy, like everything we'd been avoiding was finally about to surface. And that was only the beginning. She stared at the closed laptop like it might explode if I opened it. "You went digging?" she asked, her voice lower now, cautious instead of sharp. "I went looking for clarity," I replied. Because being told I'm not welcome at a family dinner after paying everyone's bills tends to do that. She crossed her arms tighter. You had no right to investigate my parents. I had every right to understand where my money was going. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she exhaled and switched tactics, softening her tone the way she always did when she wanted something. You're tired. You've been stressed lately. You're reading into things that aren't there. That line hit harder than she expected. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed something I'd already started to see. When people feel cornered, they try to make you doubt yourself. I'm not confused, I said evenly. And I'm not imagining numbers. I opened the laptop. I'd spent most of that afternoon doing something I should have done a year earlier. I pulled bank statements, traced transfers, matched dates against the explanations I'd been given. I wasn't looking for betrayal, I was looking for patterns. And I found them. Her parents' mortgage? Already covered months before I was asked to help. The medical bills? Insurance had paid most of it. The legal settlement I'd wired money for? Closed at a fraction of what they told me. I hadn't just been helping. I'd been overpaying. Consistently. What is this? She asked, leaning forward. Receipts, I said. And timelines. Her jaw clenched as she scanned the screen. You don't understand how these things work. I understand math, I replied. And I understand lies. She stood abruptly. You're accusing my parents of stealing? I'm saying they weren't honest, I corrected. And you knew more than you told me. Her face hardened. You're twisting things. They trusted you. We trusted you. Trusted me to keep paying. Then why tell me not to come to dinner? I asked. She hesitated. Just a second too long. Because you were asking questions, she said finally. My dad didn't like that. There it was. So instead of answering me, you shut me out. She shrugged. It was easier. Easier than telling the truth. Easier than risking the payments. I closed the laptop. I want you to answer me honestly, I said. Were you planning to keep this going? She didn't answer right away. They needed stability, she said. And you could afford it. That's not what I asked. Silence stretched between us. Then she said it, the sentence that changed how I saw her forever. They're my parents. They're going to be part of our life long term. I assumed you understood that. Assumed I'd keep funding it. And when I said I wasn't comfortable anymore? I asked. She looked at me, almost surprised. You never said no. I laughed quietly, shaking my head. Because I trusted you. Her expression softened again, but this time it didn't work. We're married, she said. This is what marriage looks like. Supporting each other. Support isn't secrecy, I said. And it's not exclusion. She stepped closer. You embarrassed me today. My parents are panicking. They have commitments. That's not my responsibility anymore. Her voice rose. You can't just pull the rug out from under them. I didn't, I replied calmly. They built on something that wasn't guaranteed. She stared at me, eyes blazing. So what now? You just punish them? This isn't punishment, I said. It's boundaries. She scoffed. You sound like a therapist. Maybe I should have talked to one sooner. That did it. She grabbed her bag. I can't believe you do this to me. To you? I asked. You told me not to come to dinner like I was some stranger. That was one night. It was a message, I said. And I finally heard it. She walked to the door, then turned back. You think you've won something, she said. You have no idea what you just started. The words hung in the air long after she left. The door clicked shut. The apartment went silent. I sat down slowly, my hands shaking, not from fear, but from the release of tension I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for months. That night, I didn't sleep much. I replayed every conversation, every request framed as urgency, every time she'd spoken for her parents instead of letting them speak themselves. By morning, I knew this wasn't over. So I took the next step. I called someone I should have contacted earlier, a financial advisor recommended by a coworker. I didn't tell him everything. Just that I needed a clear picture of my exposure and how to protect myself moving forward. He asked one question that stuck with me. Are you prepared for them to escalate when they realize the money isn't coming back? I didn't answer right away. Because deep down, I already knew the answer. By that afternoon, my wife's mother left a voicemail. Polite. Concerned. Asking to clear up a misunderstanding. Her father followed with a text that sounded less polite and more irritated. Then came the message from my wife. We need to talk. This is getting serious. I stared at the screen, then set the phone face down. Serious wasn't what was coming next. It was something far more revealing. And once it started, there would be no pretending this was just about money anymore. The first thing I noticed was the silence. No calls the next morning. No messages. No sudden emergencies that needed my help immediately. It was like someone had cut the power to a machine that had been running nonstop, and now it was recalibrating. That silence didn't calm me. It warned me. I went to work but barely registered anything around me. Every vibration in my pocket made my pulse jump. Around noon, the call finally came, not from my wife, but from an unfamiliar number. I let it ring once. Twice. Then answered. "Hello? This is Daniel Harper," the man said. "I'm calling on behalf of my wife's parents." Of course he was. "Why are you calling me?" I asked. "There's been a disruption in several payments you've been managing," he said, already sounding annoyed. "I assume this is a technical issue." "Nothing technical about it," I replied. I stopped them. A pause. A sharp inhale. "You can't just do that." "I can." And I did. His voice hardened. "You need to understand the position you're putting my family in." I smiled slightly. "You mean the position they put themselves in?" Another pause. Then, quieter, more calculated. "We were hoping to resolve this privately. My in-laws didn't want things to become uncomfortable." Uncomfortable. That word again. Always used when someone is losing leverage. "I've already been made uncomfortable," I said. "I was told not to attend a family dinner." "That's pretty clear." He sighed. "Look, emotions got involved. It wasn't handled well. But we can fix that." "Fix it how?" I didn't ask. I already knew. "We'll talk later," he said. "I'll let your wife know." The call ended. By evening, my phone was buzzing again. Messages from extended relatives I barely knew, people who'd never checked in before, suddenly asking if everything was okay. Concerned emojis. Vague comments about family harmony. The pressure was building. That night, I checked something else I hadn't before. Property records. Business filings. Public information that didn't require hacking or secrets, just attention. And that's when the picture got clearer. One of the settlements I'd paid for? It had been filed under a different name. Not her parents'. A holding company tied to her father's brother. Another payment? Used as collateral for a short-term loan that had nothing to do with the emergency I'd been told about. This wasn't sloppy. It was structured. I printed everything. The next day, my wife showed up again, this time calmer, almost rehearsed. She didn't knock. She texted from outside. "I'm here. Can we talk like adults?" I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "You look tired," she said, scanning my face like she was checking for weakness. "I feel clear," I replied. She stepped inside anyway. "My parents are scared. They think you're trying to hurt them." "I'm protecting myself." She shook her head. "You don't see how this looks." "I see it perfectly," I said. "You cut me out socially and expected the money to keep flowing. That's how this looks." She sat down. "They didn't mean it that way." "Then explain the false amounts. The extra transfers. The shell company." Her eyes widened before she could stop herself. "You weren't supposed to find that." There it was. Not denial. Not confusion. Admission. "So you knew," I said quietly. She pressed her lips together. "They had plans. Plans that included me paying for them. Plans for our future," she corrected. "And where was I in those plans?" I asked. She hesitated. "Providing stability." That was the word they used for me now. Not husband. Not partner. Stability. "I'm 31, I said. "I didn't get married to become an invisible sponsor." She stood. "You're blowing this out of proportion." "Am I?" I asked. "Because I also checked something else." I picked up the folder on the table. She recognized it immediately. "What's that?" she asked, though her voice shook. "Notes," I said. "About guardianship laws. Asset control. Who can make financial decisions if someone is deemed uncooperative?" Her face went pale. "You had no right to look into that." "I had every right," I said. "Because someone already had." She swallowed. "That was just research. My mom worries." "About me," I said. "Or about access?" She didn't answer. I stepped closer. "If I hadn't stopped the payments, how long would this have continued?" Her voice was barely audible. "As long as it needed to." I nodded. "Then this marriage was never equal." She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. "You're choosing money over family." "No," I said. "I'm choosing dignity." She grabbed her bag. "You think this ends well for you? You're isolating yourself. Better alone than used." At the door, she turned back. "You don't know what my parents are capable of." I met her gaze. "Neither do you." After she left, I locked the door and sat down hard. The realization settled in slowly, heavily. This wasn't just a financial disagreement. It was a test. And by stopping the money, I'd failed their expectations. which meant they'd try something else. And this time, it wouldn't be quiet. By the third morning, I stopped pretending this would calm down on its own. When people lose access to money they believe belongs to them, they don't retreat, they regroup. I woke up to an email from my bank flagged urgent. Someone had attempted to initiate an authorization request tied to my previous settlement account. The request was denied automatically, but the attempt alone told me everything I needed to know. They were trying doors. I forwarded the alert to my lawyer, Evan Brooks, a man I hired the same night my wife walked out. Evan didn't sugarcoat things. "They're testing leverage," he said over the phone. "Probably hoping you panic or doubt yourself." "I'm not panicking," I replied. "That's good," he said. "Because the next step is usually escalation." I didn't ask what that meant. I already felt it in my gut. That afternoon, my building manager called. "Hey, just a heads up," he said carefully. "A couple came by asking questions about your lease. Said they were family." My chest tightened. "Did you give them anything?" "No," he said. "Something felt off. I told them everything had to go through you." I thanked him and hung up, hands shaking now. They were circling. That evening, the knock came. Not loud. Not aggressive. Polite. Measured. I checked the hallway camera on my phone before opening the door. My wife's parents stood there. Her father held a manila envelope. Her mother wore that same tight smile she used at weddings and funerals, controlled, strategic. I didn't open the door. "Daniel," her father called through the wood. "We just want to talk." "I've already said everything I need to say," I replied. "This doesn't concern you alone," her mother added. "You're making decisions that affect our entire family." "Funny," I said calmly. "Because I wasn't considered family last week." Silence. Then her father sighed. "You're emotional right now. We understand. But you've misunderstood a few things." I almost laughed. "You tracked my accounts," he continued. "You disrupted agreements that were already in motion." "Agreements I never consented to," I said. He raised his voice slightly. "You signed off on the settlements." "I signed off on what I was told," I replied. "Not on lies." Her mother stepped closer to the door. "Daniel, listen to me. Men your age make mistakes when pride gets involved." That was it. The shift. "You think this is pride?" I asked. "You hid financial structures. You excluded me socially. You planned future access without my knowledge." Her father knocked once, harder now. "Open the door." "No." Another pause. Then his voice dropped. "We can resolve this quietly," he said. "Or we can let professionals decide if you're acting rationally." There it was. "Are you threatening me?" I asked. "We're concerned," her mother corrected smoothly. "You've been isolated. You've cut off communication. You're making drastic decisions." "Because I was being used." "That's your interpretation." I leaned my forehead against the door. "Leave. Now." Her father straightened. "You have 48 hours to reinstate the payments." I laughed this time. I couldn't stop it. "You don't get deadlines," I said. "You get consequences." They left without another word. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, Evan confirmed my suspicion. They'd made a preliminary inquiry with a financial mediator tied to elder and spousal dependency cases. Not a filing. Just an inquiry. A probe. "They're laying groundwork," Evan said. "Trying to paint you as unstable if this goes public." "So what do we do?" "We go on record first," he said. "We document everything. And we cut off their narrative before it exists." By Friday, everything was filed. Formal notices. Asset restructuring. Legal boundaries drawn in black ink. That evening, my wife called for the first time since she left. I answered. "Did you really do it?" she asked. "Yes." "You didn't have to humiliate them." "I didn't," I said. "They did that themselves." Her voice cracked. "You don't understand what you've started." "I understand perfectly," I replied. "You thought I wouldn't fight back." She went quiet. Then softly, almost pleading, "If you reverse this now, we can still fix things." I closed my eyes. "Fix what?" "The part where you let them plan around me. They were just trying to secure the future. Without me in it." Another silence. Then she said the one thing that erased every doubt I had left. "My father says if this continues, he'll make sure you regret it." I smiled, slowly, coldly. "Tell him," I said, "he's already too late." I hung up and set my phone down. Because I'd just finished uploading something they didn't know existed. And once it surfaced, their version of this story wouldn't matter anymore. By the time Saturday arrived, I wasn't reacting anymore, I was executing. At exactly 9:12 a.m., Evan texted me one word, live. That was my cue. 3 weeks earlier, long before the family dinner text, before the payments were cancelled, before my wife ever packed a bag, I'd started documenting everything. Quietly. Methodically. I didn't confront. I didn't accuse. I watched. I logged every settlement I'd funded. Every property adjustment. Every temporary transfer that somehow became permanent. I saved emails where wording shifted mid-thread. I archived calendar invites I was never meant to see. I recorded conversations where numbers were discussed without my presence, yet tied directly to my name. And most importantly, I kept the message my wife never meant to send me. She thought she was texting her sister. Instead, she sent it to me. Dad says once Daniel signs off on the final structure, we can move everything under Mom's trust. He won't even notice until it's done. Timestamped. Unedited. Backed up in 3 places. That single message turned suspicion into proof. So when Evan said live, what he meant was this. The formal disclosure packet had been submitted. Not to social media. Not to family. To auditors. To 2 separate financial institutions. And to a civil court clerk. By noon, the calls started. Her father first. Straight to voicemail. Then her mother, 5 times. Then numbers I didn't recognize. At 2:40 p.m., my wife showed up at my apartment. I didn't open the door immediately. I watched her through the camera feed as she paced the hallway, smoothing her jacket, rehearsing lines under her breath. She knocked once. Then again. Finally, I opened the door. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not fragile, just exposed. You blindsided them, she said, walking in without waiting for permission. No, I replied calmly. I documented them. Her eyes flashed. You didn't have to go nuclear. I didn't, I said. I went factual. She laughed bitterly. You think courts care about feelings? About family nuance? No, I said. They care about intent. And timelines. And patterns. Her face changed then. She knew. You uploaded the message, she whispered. Yes. She sank onto the couch. You destroyed my parents. I shook my head. I stopped them from destroying me. Silence filled the room. Then she looked up, voice trembling, not with sadness, but anger. You could have just walked away. And let you rewrite the story? I asked. Let me be the unstable husband who cut off support out of spite? She looked away. They already started that version, I continued. I just made sure it didn't stick. Her phone buzzed. She checked it, and went pale. What is it? I asked. She swallowed. The accounts are frozen. All of them. Even the ones I wasn't supposed to know about. I nodded. That tends to happen when auditors see coordinated transfers without beneficiary consent. She stood abruptly. You think this ends cleanly? You think you just win and move on? I met her eyes. I think this ends honestly. For the first time. She stepped toward the door, then stopped. You were never supposed to see the machinery, she said quietly. You were supposed to be comfortable. Grateful. And silent, I added. She didn't deny it. That was the moment everything crystallized. She left without another word. 2 weeks later, the settlement review concluded. The court didn't rule dramatically. No shouting. No spectacle. Just findings. Undisclosed restructuring. Preemptive asset redirection. Coercive exclusion tactics. The result? Every settlement I'd paid was reversed. Every obligation nullified. Every attempt to reposition me as unstable, dismissed. Her parents didn't lose everything. They lost access. And my wife? She lost the narrative. The divorce finalized quietly 3 months later. No alimony. No leverage. No last-minute demands. The last message she ever sent me read, I didn't think you were capable of this. I didn't reply. Because the truth was simple. I wasn't capable of betrayal. I was capable of clarity. And once I saw who was really sitting at the table, planning my future without me, I stood up, walked away, and locked the door behind me. Sometimes the most devastating move isn't yelling. It's documenting. And letting the truth speak when everyone else finally runs out of lies. If this story made you think differently about trust, family, or money, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more real stories where quiet decisions change everything, subscribe and stay with me, there's a lot more to come.